Hey there, and welcome to episode 124 of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. I am super excited to share this one with you today, as not only is it an amazing interview with two incredibly inspiring women, but it's packed with not one, not two, but three firsts for the podcast too. First up, this show went on the road. For the first time ever, I stepped out of my office and recorded on location at the newly opened and beautiful Hotpod yoga studio in Bishop Stortford, the first brick and mortar venue-based wellness business that I have interviewed on the podcast, run by the lovely Brenda Koesterman and Nicola Batten, which brings me on to the third first for the show. This episode is an interview with two women building a business together instead of alone. We talk about the moment that they realised the traditional path wasn't for them, why wellness, and most importantly, this kind of wellness, felt so aligned, and what really goes into opening a physical business in your local community. We also dive into Brenda and Nicola's unique journey from corporate life and science to wellness entrepreneurship, and how a shared love for yoga brought them together as business partners. The magic and honesty of running a business with a partner, how they navigate decision making when they don't always agree, what makes the Hotpod experience so powerful for mental health, stress relief, and confidence, the role that motherhood has played in shaping how they lead and are building their business, and their 5 pods in 5 years vision for creating something that goes far beyond just yoga classes. If you've ever dreamed of opening a physical space, going into business with a friend, or building something that's rooted in well-being, community, and purpose, you are going to love this episode. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur, the podcast for mums with an online business who are ready to take back their time, home, business, and self so they can restore the balance and thrive, both at home and at work, without feeling like they have to choose between the two. I'm your host, Sarah Dew, life and biz coach for mumpreneurs. I'm also a mum, stepmom, wife, introvert, breast cancer survivor, and your mentor for making a change for the better. I've learned how to go from surviving to thriving and unapologetically create a business I love and the life I want for me and my family without worrying about what other people think. And now I'm here to help you do the same. Because being an unapologetic mompreneur doesn't mean that we're selfish or that we don't care about others. It simply means that we are not afraid to show up as our true, authentic selves, to step into our purpose, do what we know is right for ourselves and the ones we love, and take the steps we need to take to make our dream life and business a reality. Join me each week where I'll be sharing all of my best tips and strategies, plus the occasional dose of tough but gentle love to help you feel empowered, motivated, and confident to take action so that you can become the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. So, are you ready to unapologetically create a business and life you love? Let's do this. So, hey, Nick and Brenda, welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. And do you want to just start off and just introduce yourselves, and just in case anybody hasn't met you before, and just share a bit about you, your journey, and what's brought you to what you're doing now, and family, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Nicola. I am in the early days of midlife. I live in Saffron Walden with my family, my cat and my dog. Um, been in the Essex area for about the last 10 years or so. In my previous life, I was a scientist, but over the last decade, I have been a founder of Hotpod Yoga Saffron Walden, and that has now developed and evolved into Hotpod Yoga Bishop Stortford, which I do with my co-founder, Brenda.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brenda. I am the co-founder of Bishop Stortford Hotpod Yoga. And usually we call it Hotpod Yoga Bishop Stortford, actually. I've lived in England since 2011. I moved here after a long life in Seattle, Washington, in the United States, originally because my husband was doing his MBA at the time. And we thought we were only going to stay for a year, but here I am 15 years later. So I actually have a long, long, long history of loving health and wellness that started early years. However, I have had a big corporate job for a long time, which I'm hoping will wrap up sometime in the next few years. I'm later midlife, bit older than Nicola, but this is a big part of my life. I own 6 studios in the United States with my daughter, which my daughter runs, my oldest child. And I also have Destination Wellness, which maybe some of you will hear about around here in Bishop Stortford, because we're in partnership and reside inside the studio in Bishop Stortford. And then that was actually the introduction to Nicola when I started attending the Hotpod in Saffron Walden, and we teamed up because she was doing the yoga at Destination Wellness retreats. When it was time to relocate, we did it together, and that created Hotpod Bishop Stortford.
Fantastic. I love that story and how the two of you come together and just how well you work together as a team. And I've got some questions I'll ask you about that later on. So I know everybody's going to be really interested in hearing how that works as a partnership. So what moment in your lives made you realize that you wanted more than the traditional path and that entrepreneurship might be it?
So I studied and worked in immunology for about 2 decades in my early life. And I worked largely in a laboratory, and I used to call myself a lab rat. And I had a steady job there, but I always felt that I hadn't really found my niche. I hadn't really found my calling. I mean, I still love science and I have a really deep respect for it. It still interests me. But I just knew that that wasn't really where I felt fulfilled in terms of a career. It took me traveling around the world a couple of times, during which I practiced yoga myself, my own practice, every day to help in what I was doing. So I went mountain hopping around the world. And it was part of my fitness and wellness regime. And that's essentially all it was meant to be. But it was whilst I was in Jackson in America that I was sat on the top of a mountain in the Tetons. And I had this epiphany that I was enjoying so much my yoga practice, and not just the benefits it had on my physical body, but also majority of it was on my mental well-being. And I decided at that point that I wanted to go back home to the UK and I wanted to become a yoga teacher. So that was kind of like the turning point for me. But unfortunately, when I got back to the UK, I fell back into my job. And it wasn't until a good 5 years later that the opportunity arose where I was then in a position to actually give up my day job. And then I went on to do yoga teacher training. And then the rest is where we are now.
Yeah, that's incredible. And just to have that realization that that was what you loved doing,
Yeah,
I didn't do that. But
yeah.
it's incredible. How about you, Brenda?
My path is probably a little bit different, but easy to summarize. I I have always been a really entrepreneurial person. And even I remember back in my 20s, I had a therapist that made a joke that I was born to be an entrepreneur because I started selling a box of leftover unused pens from my dad's real estate business door to door to make money because I wanted desperately to go to Girl Scout camp. But I've always worked in an environment. If you look at my corporate roles, I haven't had very many actually, only a few over the course of my career, but every single time it was a startup environment, whether it was a new product or it was a new territory, or in the case of Europe, an entire new continent. And so the beauty of that, though, I think when you're an entrepreneur, it's always an immense struggle in the beginning. And it's so easy to think day to day, oh my gosh, is this really going to work? Is it really going to happen? You want to give up a bajillion times. And the good fortune I had from that corporate environment is while I was in an entrepreneurial space, growing a new region, growing a new business, whatever the case might be, I still had the protection of the corporation behind me. So it wasn't sort of a do or die situation at an extreme level. And it gave me that experience of knowing how hard it is with that protection. So when I was able to go into the truly entrepreneurial businesses, including Hotpod Bishop Stortford with Nicola, it was a long 2-year journey of finding space, negotiating with landlords, building the space out, running out of money several times, trying to figure it out. And there was even a moment where Nick kind of threw her hands up, and I was like, we're going to keep saying yes until we have to say no, and we just have no choice. So it's all a bit of a journey, and I think it's just what always came naturally to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that just from the very start of being when you were younger, just having that mindset of like, I'm just going to go and sell the pens and I'm going to make some money. And for a reason, because you had the why behind it of wanting to go to Girl Scout camp then and having the why behind it now. And I just think that is amazing. So why particularly wellness and why this kind of wellness?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was largely through my own experience. So it was through my yoga practice and what it had given me in terms of liberation and the clarity of mind that very similar to pretty much every yoga teacher that I have ever met. You know, their whole why is that they came to yoga in the first place for the physical benefits, but stayed because of the mental benefits that they received. So it was that experience that I wanted to share with the rest of my community. It was that sense of almost, it wasn't quite enlightenment in the traditional terms of enlightenment, but it was just knowing that you could help other people on the same path to realize that just chugging along in their day to day wasn't always the answer. You know, they could widen their view, they could widen their scope. And it was yoga that enabled me to do that. So I wanted to share that with everyone else.
How about you, Brenda?
Mine's a tiny bit different. I am a yoga instructor and I do teach yoga. And I've been practicing yoga for, oh my gosh, probably 30 years at this point in time. And it's a big part of my life, and the practice is really important. The wellness aspect of what Nick and I do together here, though, I came to from a different perspective. I have a long history of health and mental health issues in my family. And I've always been quite conscious of it. I think that's why I was always focused on my health and well-being my entire life. But there also came a point where I was convinced that there was a better way than Western medicine, which many, many years ago resulted in me pursuing my master's in Ayurvedic medicine. So Destination Wellness is actually an Ayurvedic practice company, which is where Nick and I first got together. And so I tend to come at the wellness aspect from the whole body aspect, understanding people's constitutions, where they have imbalances, how we can help support those imbalances. Because Ayurveda is an Indian medicine, it's deeply rooted in a lot of the same principles as yoga, and yoga is considered a sister science. And interestingly, part of the master's is you do have to be yoga certified. And so I've been through my yoga teacher training, obviously, and all of that. So the two really marry together quite nicely. My purview on yoga has changed significantly in the last few years as we've been involved in this. And the connection between the two brings a health and well-being and balance to the overall message in the studio that Ayurveda alone or yoga alone wouldn't convey the same message.
That's so nice. It just fits so well together. And just, we often start our business because it's something that we're passionate about. And it must be so rewarding for both of you to actually just see people coming out after their sessions and the actual, what it's doing for them and bringing in that sort of balance. So what, just in case anybody hasn't come across it before, what is Hotpod Yoga and how did the idea to open the yoga studio here in Bishop Stortford come about? So Hotpod Yoga was created in London, in Hackney, by two fellas who were best friends, Nick and Max. And Nick was a yoga teacher. But when he first started, he wanted to get into yoga for helping him find better balance throughout his body. He managed to
wrote Max in, as reluctantly as he was, to going to a yoga class with him, and they just found that there was a real misrepresentation of what yoga was at the time, and how it felt very inaccessible to so many people for all the wrong reasons. So they wanted to make yoga accessible, but they knew that hot yoga was probably a bit more empowering for people to try. So they developed the Hotpod. They initially transported it around London to different corporate buildings, which is why it's the dimensions that it was, so that it could fit under the ceilings in office spaces. And they would cart it around, teach yoga classes, deflate the pod, and then take it off elsewhere. The business plan evolved over the years to what it is now, where you can't open a franchise without having a permanent location. But essentially, we teach hour-long yoga classes. We've got 4 different types, ranging from a dynamic flow, which is a very powerful, moving, exploratory yoga practice, all the way down to our rest and restore, which is an unheated practice, very prop heavy, where you touch on other parts of yoga, such as yoga breathing, yoga nidra, which is guided meditation through the body. It's all done in the Hotpod, whether it's a heated class or not. It's all taught by teachers who are fully immersed in the Hotpod yoga experience, but they also bring their own personality to all of the different lesson plans that we teach. And we try to be a very community-driven, very inclusive studio. And our ethos has always been that we are trying to bring the benefits of yoga to the 99% of people that don't practice. We're very much driven by the whole point that yoga is for everyone and should be for everyone, as are the benefits.
There are so many benefits.
There are so many benefits.
So that brings us nicely on to the next question I want to ask you is, how does the pod environment support mental health, stress relief, and confidence? And what transformations have you already seen in the people that have tried it?
Well, looks like Nick wants me to answer that one. I have a lot of words to say on this one. I think one of the most endearing things that I experience in the studio is almost nobody comes out of the pod and doesn't say, "Oh my gosh, that was such an amazing experience. I feel so good." And I think often they don't know why they feel so good. And that's okay, because it's all a journey, 100%. And it can be quite intimidating if you've never done hot yoga before, especially in the pod environment, because we can perfectly control it. We control the temperature, we control the humidity, we control the scents in there. And even if you've been to a hot yoga studio before, if it's just an open space, it's impossible to control it the way we can control it. And so the first experience might be a little bit intimidating because your body is not sure what's happening. And the next time you come, it's a little bit better. And for some reason, you just keep coming back. And every time it's better. And all of a sudden, you get to a point where your body is craving it. And what it's really craving is all of the benefits that you asked about. Because the pod is an immersive environment, as you continue to come to more classes, you'll reach a point where the second you walk into that pod and lay down and the zipper closes, your mind knows this is my moment to turn off. And that's truly a meditation practice, whether you realize it or not. Just being in that space where your mind knows, that's how we train ourselves to meditate, is training our minds to know this is the space where I meditate now, and it can just turn off. Then the environment and the practice itself is incredibly soothing to the body. Yoga is designed to work through the entire body in a specific sequence so that it activates all of the, I won't get into too many technical terms, but you can refer to the meridians, you can refer to the chakras, you can refer to the body clock, which is all of our organs are attached to. And the yoga sequence always works through that in a specific process. So it's a detoxification process for your body from beginning to end, ending with a rest. The rest, which we call a shavasana, is the ability for your body to just absorb all of the energy that you've created. So when people come out and they say, I feel amazing, it's because they have just put their body through exactly what it needs for a detoxification process, both physically and mentally. And you come out physically feeling amazing, feeling completely refreshed, and your mind is totally clear.
Sounds amazing. And we need that time, don't we? And it's just going in and, like you said, having the zipper closed, it's just that signal like, this is my time now. And especially as mums and running businesses and juggling all of the things, it's so hard for us to have that time and make that time. So I think it's just, yeah, it's definitely something that everybody needs to try, I think. So let's move on to talking about the both together as managing the business together between you. And it's so good because this is the first time on the podcast that we've actually interviewed as people working together as a team rather than one individual business owner. So I know that everybody's going to be really curious about this. So what do you each bring to the business that you feel complements each other, that allows you to run it together so successfully?
Oh, I love that question. I think based on how Nicola and I met, which we originally met in her Hotpod in Saffron Walden, and the work that we did together in retreats with Destination Wellness, we always had this, oh, we really like working together. And we always knew that we brought a completely different approach to it. I would argue that Nicola, I lean on her a lot as the softer side of the business. We call her our pod experience curator because she's the one that makes this space so amazing every time somebody walks into the studio. I'm the one that leaves a trail of mess behind me that she's always picking up. I have the clutter. My mind's all over the place. And that in and of itself just creates an amazing balance. I mean, I'll walk into the pod after I've been working in the studio. I'll come back out and she's tidied all my stuff up and put it all away. And so Nicola brings this just amazing presence and I'm going to say nurturing and caretaking to the business that maybe isn't my strongest suit. It doesn't mean I'm not a nurturing person and I love people and that kind of thing, but it's just not my immediate go-to. When we have really hard business decisions to make or really hard conversations to have, that's when Nicola just sort of hands me the baton because I tend to be a bit more comfortable with that and I'm okay with it. But the important thing is, without getting into all the details about how it works, we have an unbelievable separation of what Nicola's really good at, what Brenda's really good at, because we don't necessarily have overlap in every area. We do some things, both of us can cover them, no problem. And we have great overlap. But there's some things that we've just intuitively known. Okay, Brenda's going to do that. Nicola's going to do that. And neither one of them is going to get in the other person's way because they're just totally different skill sets.
And it was a decision that we made really, really early on. I remember being in your kitchen in your house. And this is where it was literally like a thrown out idea. How about we just go into business together? And it was kind of like this instant moment of, yeah, absolutely. And then it was pretty much followed by, I'll do X, Y, and Z, and you'll do A, B, and C. And it just right from the start, we knew exactly where we stood, what our personal positions were within this partnership, and we were instantly okay with that. So there was never any of this muddy water in between. We just always knew right from the offset where we stood with each other. And because we knew that, not only did we kind of not step on each other's toes, but we were fully there to support each other when we were going to be called to arms, sort of thing. So it worked really well from the beginning. I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think you need to know where you are right from the beginning, don't you? But I think also you get that indication straight away. Like you said, that even earlier on, you're like, we must do something together. We should work together. We should do this together. And you did the retreats together and everything, that you obviously knew that there was that just instant connection and instant gelling. So how does things go in the business if you're making decisions and things? Do you, especially if you don't have times where you necessarily agree, how do you manage that when making decisions together?
Well, we actually spend a lot less time together than we would like to. Obviously, we communicate constantly, but it's primarily via WhatsApp and an occasional video call. I think Nick gets a little bit frustrated sometimes because I'll frequently cancel calls at the last minute and she has to cover them herself. And it's like, oh, I really wish Brenda was here to cover these bits and pieces. But we're always available to step in for each other in that sense. I mean, we're like any traditional partnership. We don't agree on everything. We have to talk things out. It all comes down to communication and respect. I think on one side, I hold an unbelievable amount of respect for Nicola because she had a Hotpod on her own for 8 years and she successfully run it. And she had an amazing following. And much of that following has even come to us here in Bishop Stortford. So I sort of look to her as being the Hotpod expert in that sense. On the flip side, I have the studios in Seattle with my daughter, which have had their trials and tribulations. And that's been an interesting journey. Also a franchise. So I have a lot of history with dealing, especially in conflict situations with a franchise situation that maybe hasn't come up for Nicola and hopefully will never come up for us here. But just in case. And because I have a very long corporate background and managing teams that do hundreds of millions worth of revenue a year, I bring a different financial perspective and different expectations. I have a very strong sales and marketing background, which I've been able to bring to the studio. And I remember initially when I was first talking about like targets and numbers and things like this, I saw Nicola's eyes kind of roll in the back of her head like, oh, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. And now that we're a few months into the actual studio being a real thing, I think I've knocked your socks off.
You totally have, yeah, definitely. Yeah, in a really good way. But it's just that moving from a business in Saffron Walden to a business in Bishop Stortford, where we knew the demographic would be different. We knew that the offering would be different. It's been able to excel in a way and be structured in a way that's allowed it to excel way beyond my expectations. The team has been built completely differently. So not only is it Brenda and myself that are involved, we also have a dedicated marketing specialist who I never would have looked to employ when I was running my business in Saffron Walden. And if it wasn't for Brenda was very much like, look, before we even started, before the building was even complete, she was like, we need this. And having known how it was in Saffron Walden and how important having marketing and having yourself put out there, I sort of went with it. She was like, we've got to get this off. We've got to get somebody on board. And we did. We found Jodie and she has just slotted in perfectly. And it's something that was such a huge investment in the first place for me that I was terrified. I was like, how are we ever going to be able to afford this? But we can afford it because of the fact that she puts in such good work, getting us out there, helping us to be visual and upfront in front of everyone. And that's all down to Bren's persistence and don't worry, it'll be fine. We need this, Nicola. And I was like, okay, close my eyes and just let her go with it. But again, that's business background from Bren that I never would have had the confidence or the appreciation as to how important and how pivotal it would be. So yeah.
Jodie is actually an interesting point in all of this. So yes, I was adamant that we needed a full-time marketing person and Nick bought into it. So we were fine. We put an ad out to interview and this is a space where you have to trust each other as partners, right? So Nick was already trusting me that we needed this. I'm in the throes of interviewing dozens of people and it's horrendous and just trying to make a decision and trying to whittle it down. And Jodie actually came kind of late in the stage. We got a lot of our applicants off of LinkedIn and Indeed. And then Jodie saw something about us on the Bishop Stortford Facebook page and was like, hey, had no real credentials, didn't have a marketing. Everybody I was interviewing had a proper marketing education background and whatnot. She didn't have any of that. She was like, hey, look, I'm a mom that moved to Dunmo and didn't know what I was going to do to build a community. And I did all these things, which I think are marketing-y, and I'm really good at social media and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at all of her bits and her answers were great. And I liked her. So she made the cut in terms of final applicants. but there was something still kind of holding me back. I was trying to be overly analytical about making a choice on these people because it's a big decision. It's a really important role.
Yeah.
And then it came down to a day where we had an interview with the Bish, and Nick was like, "Hey, Jody does makeup too. Why don't we just ask her to do our makeup for this?" And she came in and did that. And we're going to have her take a few pictures and kind of put some stuff together and see what we think of our work, blah, 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 blah. So that was all happening. And while we were on that interview, walking around Bishop Stortford, Nick kind of pulled me aside and said, "Bren, I really want Jody. I really want Jody. There's something about her that just feels really right." Now, I wasn't having that gut intuition because I was over analyzing the process so much. But Nick, with all of her feelings, just let the universe say to her, "This is the right person." And at the time I was like, yeah, I like her too, but blah, blah, blah. And so then Jody and I ended up having a chat on the way back to the car, came to an agreement on a trial basis, and then she knocked our socks off. And so now we really are a team of three.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
It's the three of us that Jody is in it just as she's first thing in the morning, 6 a.m. She's on Team Up, checking the stats.
Yeah.
And it's the first text message the three of us have every day.
Yeah. And she's got 2 young children. She's got another job that she is juggling with as well. And amazingly, she has been able to pour her energy into so many different pots. I mean, she's got a loving relationship. She's got a beauty business. She's got these 2 girls. She's doing this for us, and she's just as worthy of being really on this podcast as we are. She's a big part of Hotpod Bishop Stortford, and we would be lost without her, I think.
It's incredible. I think it's really is just down to finding the right people and gelling and having it complementary of each other. And obviously there's just so much trust between all of you. I absolutely love it. I just think it's incredible.
Jody's going to hear this podcast and ask for a raise. Waiting for it.
Just nice on to the next question. As I know, as women in business, mums in business, and a lot of it, we are doing it and holding on to it ourselves. We may be thinking about teaming up with somebody else and bringing somebody on board and having some kind of partnership. So what advice would you give to women considering going into business with a friend or a partner?
Ooh, one of the things we haven't talked about a lot yet is that we are moms. We are all moms. We just talked about Jody and her 2 girls. Nicola has a lovely little lion cub named Leo. And I have 3 kids. 2 of mine are grown and out of the house, but I still have 1 at home. And I would say one of the biggest things that really bonds us all is that we do understand that balance between being a mom and having a career, and which is what it is for all of us. It's absolutely a very dedicated full-time career. But to answer your question directly, I've met a lot of female partnerships that go into business with their best friend thinking, "Oh, this is going to be amazing." And they really struggle. And I think they struggle mostly because they haven't thought out the mechanics of the business relationship and who's gonna take care of the dirty work, who's gonna do the fun stuff, where are you gonna share it in these other spaces, and having a mutual respect and really understanding what those roles, responsibilities, and boundaries are. I would say that's something between Nick and I, we've done a really good job at. And also with Jody in the mix as well. Like we never question Jody's social media ideas. We're just like, well, she's the expert. She knows. It doesn't mean I don't have opinions about social media. It doesn't mean Nick doesn't have opinions, because we all do. My opinion is usually like, things are trending down, Jody. What are we doing? What are we doing about it? But it's, if you're going to go into a business partnership with a friend, the mechanics and the reality of the mechanics, because first and foremost, it's a business relationship.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that you have that really set out and understand what everybody's doing, and also be able to separate your personal love for each other from that a little bit, because there will be times that you have conflict and don't agree and you have really hard times, and you have to be able to communicate and work through those from a business perspective, and then nurture your other relationships separately and not really intermix them.
Yeah. Anything you want to add from that, from your perspective, coming into partnering up with Brenda?
I mean, for me, this is one of the, if not the only business partnership that I've been into with a friend. I mean, I've sort of put the idea out there before in the past, but nothing's ever really come to fruition. And I think it's always because there's been that element of holding back. Because not really, you've got to have trust. You've got to have trust in the partnership for it to work. But that was something that for some, universally unknown reason, when I first met Brenda, there was an instant belief that I trusted her completely. And I think that in order for these kind of partnerships to work, you've got to be fully transparent as well. You've got to be really, really open and be comfortable with being open, delivering a difficult message and saying, like, for instance, we've got a collaboration coming up between Destination Wellness, which is going to be in the studio space. And coming from the brand point of view, I'm very firmly putting parameters in so that there's no conflict there. But because of the fact that I do respect and love Brenda very much, because we are friends, and not just business partners, I'm not telling her, no, we're not doing it like that. We can't do it for X, Y, and Z. There's a tact around it, and there's that wanting to help understand why we're coming at it from the reasons that, from the point of view that we're coming at it. So being able to communicate in a way that is very open, very transparent, but still with a level of respect, without thinking, look, I'm from the brand point of view, I know what I'm talking about, I know exactly, I've done it for how many years, not coming at it from that point of view. Because just as well, Brenda's got 5-6 other franchises in America. She knows completely how the system works. So I don't need to teach her how to suck eggs. But at the same time, Hotpod is Hotpod, Pure Bar is Pure Bar. And we've just got to be able to communicate in that really safe, respectful way.
Yeah, absolutely. And just knowing what each other's strengths are and weaknesses are and how you can work together and all the trust that comes with it. I think the transparency thing and being open is so important.
Yeah.
Amazing. So how would you say that motherhood has shaped the way that you approach business and leadership? Just mentioned, obviously, and we're all mums and everybody listening, most of them are mums. How would you say that like shapes us in the way that we're able to run our businesses?
Yeah, I love that question. And it's interesting too, because Nick and I we're different moms, and we bring the experiences being moms into the business in a different way. I actually raised my first two children almost completely solo, from a very, very young age, because we lost my first husband when my son was 2 and my oldest was 6. And so, as a result, because it was only me, I had to be everything. I had to be the mom, the dad, the breadwinner, the caretaker, the everything. And so I fell into a parenting style that was very, very structured. And as that developed, because it was very much, I couldn't be there all the time, and I had help, fortunately, but it was like, okay, kids, like, I'm going to set expectations that you're going to manage your stuff. And here's the priorities that are there. And if you're not managing it, I'm going to step in, and you're probably not going to like it, but I'm going to step in and make sure that we are getting straight A's and we are practicing our violin and whatever the case might be. But hey, if you manage that on your own without me intervening, more power to you. You're going to reap the rewards from it. And whether it's been at the Hotpod or in the studios that we mentioned in Seattle or in my corporate business, I approach leadership the same way. And nobody likes to hear me say, it's just like parenting. But to me, it feels the same way, because I'm growing and mentoring and building people's lives and careers, which is, I feel like, what parenting is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I tell my kids is, like, I have one job, and that's to get you to a point where you are a functional, contributing member of society. And if I fail at that, I have failed as a mom. And I don't want to fail as a mom. So we're not going to do that. We're going to make sure we get you there. But I bring that same kind of style to the business. And I would say that Nick is a little bit different, because she's definitely more of a caretaker, nurturer, She'll never miss a bedtime reading. I've definitely missed loads of those. And so she brings that kind of energy to the pod, which I think is why you see such a loving, nurturing, caring vibe in the studio space. No detail left untouched, that's for sure.
Yeah. Because my baby's my only baby, and he is my lion, and my parenting style is very different. I mean, at the heart of it, I'm a very wear my heart on my sleeve kind of relationship with my son. He knows when he's upset me, he knows when I'm happy, and I just want to nurture him in every possible way. I want him to feel like I'm always going to show up for him, and that if there's anything that he can count on, it's going to be me. My relationship with my husband, though, is that's not actually how it needs to be, because I've got a very supportive relationship with my husband, and he's always there. He'll be there to take Leo to basketball if I'm ever not. He's got a really healthy, happy relationship with his dad. But when it comes to business as well, I flourish in welcoming people. I flourish in showing people that they're supported, that they're provided for, that they're in a safe space. You know, that they've got everything that they need to make this their haven. They come here, it's stepping out of whatever nonsense they've got going on outside. They can thrive in here so that when they leave, they're healthier, happier, more grounded, nicer human beings. You know, but one teacher who says that whenever she's at home, not having a bad day or something, her husband will turn around and go, "You need to go to yoga." You know, and it's a real reality for a lot of people. It is that physical reset. And I feel that if I don't put my energy into making sure that that experience is there for everybody that steps in through the door, whether it's our customers, whether it's our staff, our teachers, whether it's people that come to clean the space, if it's not there, then I'm falling short. Because that's what it needs to be. People need to know that when they walk in that door, it's going to be the most incredible experience, and it's going to be worth every penny that they pay.
And you're definitely achieving it. The very second we walk in here, it's so lovely. The vibe is lovely. It's nice and purple. And
the colour of magic.
It's all very lovely. And and it does come across. You can definitely see that the nurture side has come into it. And then, like you said, again, it's just that complimenting each other that you're bringing in with the way that you are doing it as well. So now you are with the yoga studio. What sort of success look like for you from 1 year from now? What are your visions and your plans for it? And how do you see the studio evolving just beyond the classes? Because I know we were talking before we came on to the record, just how many extra classes you've been putting on already because of the demand for it, which is just amazing. So yeah, what's your vision for it, and how do you see it moving forward?
Well, Brenda's going to answer this one, because at the end of the day, I'm going wherever she takes us.
Started this journey, the conversation was actually, I don't think we had a conversation when we started the journey, but one day we were in the car together driving down here from Saffron Walden. I think I'd picked Nick up, and I said, so we're doing this. What do you think about like maybe 5 pods in 5 years? And I was really nervous about the question because I was worried that she was going to be like, "I just want one baby." And she shrugged her shoulders and said, "Well, that's what it's all about." And so I think that was the moment I knew that this probably is not going to be our only studio. And then, we haven't even been open a month, unless you count the soft launch, but not even a month. And, we were advised to open on a reduced schedule because it would be hard to fill classes. And we didn't. We opened on a regular schedule, and everything was waitlisted. And so we expanded the schedule by almost 25%. Already. So if anybody wants to come to a 12:30 or a 5 o'clock any day, those are the classes that have space. Or 6:30 a.m. But otherwise, all of our classes are full and waitlisted now. So, we never imagined that we would be operating a studio that was as busy as the London studio. So we're over the moon about that. We're already thinking about who we're going to end up turning the reins over for this studio as a studio manager. Nick and I are never going to go away, but we are very optimistic about finding somebody in the next year to grow into a studio manager position to run this studio. while Nick goes back on the hunt for our next demographic. And we'd love to have a second studio open within 2 years, and we'd love to get to 5 pods in 5 years. That's the strategy and the plan. But we're only going to do it in the right markets with the right demographics when we're ready, because we don't want to compromise the experience at any one of the studios, especially this one. And so I think you'll see more to come. More to come.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the idea of 5 pods in 5 years. That is such a great goal. And just to say it out loud and seeing it happen. And I can see it happening. Just success you've had already just in the few weeks that you have been open. It just shows that what it's going to be like, and imagine. So yeah,
we're just hoping in our next one we can afford to pay builders to do everything, and Nick and I won't be working 24 hours a day and build. That was a bit brutal, but
I love my car.
The first one's always the hardest.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once you've got that and you've got the method and you know what works, you can rinse and repeat kind of, really, can't you? But yeah, so exciting. And I'm just so thrilled for you that it's already going from strength to strength and what it is. So yeah, if anybody has not come and checked it out, Bishop Stortford, come and put yourself for a class and give it a go. And like you say, well, you'll be hooked and your body is just going to keep telling you that you need more. So fantastic. So I've got one question before we share where everybody can find you. One question that I always love to ask all of my guests on the show, what does being an unapologetic mompreneur mean to you, and how do you show up unapologetically every day, both as a mum and as the boss of your business?
So, gosh, even when we were talking about this question before, I was like, oh God, I don't really know what my answer to that is, but it's just knowing what your reason for doing it is. It's having complete trust in the fact that if you feel something in your bones is right, just go for it. And then knowing that as long as you have a really good support and structure behind you, as long as your conversation is good, your communication is good, that everything else kind of falls into place. And then finding that balance between the two, knowing when you're going to lean in, knowing when you're going to step back, and just believing in the goal that you're setting for yourself. And I think that's the way I feel about it. But I don't know. I don't know.
I think it was.
Yeah. Just knowing when to push, knowing when to pull, knowing that if it's the right thing for you, it's gonna happen.
I couldn't agree more. Brenda, how about you?
Well, I've always felt really grounded in the aspect, even when, niggles climb into my head or guilt sets in, or I'm stuck on the wrong continent with a sick kid, and it can get really stressful being a mom and a business person at the same time. But one of the things I've always held on to is I know that I'm setting a tremendous example for my children, and I always thought that, but it didn't really become truly apparent to me until my children were grown. I have one that's going to be 30 this year and a second that's going to be 26 this year. And I still have one kind of small one, 13 at home. But my almost 30-year-old runs the studios in Seattle. It was her idea to buy them and expand them. And she's incredibly entrepreneurial, and she just completely owns her own life. My middle child also has gone on his own journey. He enrolled in the U.S. Army and is an airborne sniper in the U.S. Army, and is, I have opinions about that too, but that's a different topic. But is very much on a driven, motivated path. And I'm already seeing the semblances of that in my youngest as well. So I always held on to that. I had a feeling that was going to be a really powerful benefit of always showing up and having that balance. But to Nicola's point, a lot of it is very much about knowing when to push forward a little bit harder, knowing when to pull back a little bit more. We run into situations all the time where our families just have to take priority. And one of the amazing benefits of the relationship between me and Nick and even Jody is when one of us says that, the other one is like, oh, yeah, babes, I got you covered. Don't even worry about it. Like, I know you got a sick kid at home. I know you have an urgent situation, whatever. And that's an amazing, amazing help. But there's nothing better in my mind to set an example for our children that we can be strong and independent and loving and nurturing and provide an amazing environment for both our families and our work environment.
I absolutely love that, and I couldn't agree more. And it's such a wonderful legacy to be leaving our children and showing us that they can achieve whatever they want to achieve, that they can follow their own path, they can do things the way that they want to, and the resilience and everything that comes from that. Just learning from them. Thank you so much, ladies. This has been an amazing, amazing conversation. And yeah, so if people want to find out more and they need thinking, right, I need to come and book and come and see you guys, where can they find you, and where can they check you out on Instagram and everything? We'll make sure the links are all in the show notes, but do you just want to share briefly where they can
So
find
we've
you?
got a lot of presence on Facebook and Instagram. Our tag is Hotpod Yoga, either underscore or hyphen Bishop Stortford, all one word. Don't forget the double S's in the middle. If you're walking past the studio, there's QR codes all over the windows. We've got some fantastic ambassadors that are working with us at the studio here, and you can find them all online as well. If you contact any of our ambassadors, they've got their own discount codes, which if you sign up with their discount codes, you can come and try a free class. Yeah, we're fully online. We've got our own Hotpod Yoga app. You just need to look for the Bishop Stortford studio. There are over 60 franchises now, so just make sure you choose the right one. Yeah, make sure you choose the right one. But other than that, I'm in Bishop Stortford pretty much every day. So if you're walking past the studio, feel free to knock on the door. There's always a sofa. You can come and sit with us, grab a drink. We'll answer all the questions that you have for us. Yeah, amazing.
I would say that our most common new time visitor is from hearing it from somebody else.
Yes.
And we will make sure before you leave today that you have your own referral code and you know how to share that with people. And anytime anybody gets a referral code, they do get their first class free.
Amazing. Yeah. That's incredible. Thank you so much, ladies. This has been absolutely awesome. We'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. Definitely come and check them out and come and visit and book yourself in for a class. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you so much for joining me for another installment of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I would love for you to leave me a rating and a review so that other mompreneurs can find this podcast too. Here's to unapologetically becoming the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. I can't wait to chat with you in the next episode. Bye for now.